So good morning, you guys. Okay, so there we go. Yay. So yes, Valencia College, we've got this beautiful space. I call it 11,000 square feet of fabulous, because it is pretty awesome. But when I bring in clients from the outside, like I had Johnson & Johnson in a couple months ago, people flew in from California, and they're like, what? We're going to a community college? And then they get there, and I go, now what do you think? And they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. So it's really cool. So I use the creative problem-solving process, which is a framework, right? Anybody who's got a challenge, I can help them get solutions. So I was telling a couple people earlier, the business model at Valencia is that 70% of my job is working with internal clients, so changing the culture on our campuses, because a couple years ago, we were named the #1 community college in the country. Did you guys know that? No, I know, right? So our college president, Dr. Shugart, was like, well, that's great, but how do we stay ahead? So this design studio was his baby, was in his head. And then they came and stole me from Disney and do the same kind of work, so it's kind of fun. So then 30% of my job is bringing in external clients. So just in the last couple weeks, I have had Wells Fargo, the Orlando Sentinel, the Expressway Authority, All Aboard Florida, and Monday I get to work with my little cutie friend there, Reggie Riley, and Orlando Health. So I have done this work with anybody from Homeland Security. Think about that. Okay, to yesterday, I spoke with the Boston Children's Hospital, and I was telling Danny, oh my gosh, they had a speaker come up ahead of me, and it was a Children's Miracle Network dad. Oh my God, everybody was crying, and then they were like, okay, and now we want to introduce our keynote, Gert. And I was like, awesome. So it was kind of hard to transition, but you know, we made it work. So anyways, but the beauty of it is this process and the tools and the behaviors, they can work on anybody's challenge. So the guy that trained me came out of a company called What If. It's an innovation company out of New York. And he used this, he met the girl of his dreams, but she was $100,000 in debt. And he was like, Amy, I cannot marry you until we get you out of debt. So they used the creative problem-solving process on her debt situation. And 3 years later, they were married. Now they started their own business. They've got a baby. I mean, it's awesome. So it can be used on anything. That's the beauty of it. So people just need to be open to it. So I'm going to start this session, like I do any session, with some agreements. So let's see what those look like. So the first one, you always start every creative session being positive-minded, right? Positive-minded is different than being open-minded. It's looking for the underlying principle behind something and applying it back, okay? So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to lean back, cross your arms, give me your yuckiest face ever, and repeat after me. Oh my God. What is this girl going on about? The only reason I'm here is because my root canal surgery got canceled. That is not being positive-minded, my friends. Okay, so now uncross your arms, lean forward, give me your most enthusiastic look, and repeat after me. Oh my God! I totally love this creativity stuff. It is Friday, and we are gonna have an awesome day. And it's full moon, my friends, so you know that always makes for a little wacky behavior out there. Okay, the next one is share the air. So I always try to get everybody to talk. Because, you know, in any group that I work with, there's, I call them the 3 Vs. So you've got the volunteers. Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here. Oh, right, those people. You got the vacationers. Woo, I'm out of the office for the day, right? And then you have the victims. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm here, okay? But the thing is, you also have the speech makers, right? So I like to split people up into groups because then the introverts also get to talk. So, because it's really important that everybody builds on each other's ideas. That's how we get the good, rich, robust ideas, right? So I've been using this. I got to travel all over the world for Disney. I did a lot of work in Disneyland Paris, which didn't suck. It was awesome. So But I use the share the air everywhere. And then I get to Valencia, it's also the tagline for not smoking on campus. So now when I do internal sessions, I'm like, okay, so I need everybody to talk, and please don't smoke. Awesome. Next is be present. What happens is, if everybody's on their phone or the device, then they're right here. They're looking at that Outlook calendar that looks like a barcode, and I get it, mine does too, okay? But then people are right here and they're very linear. We need them to be lateral, so we need them to be out here. So I always tell people, I'm gonna give you, I just bought these earrings in Savannah, they're like art pieces. I'm gonna take these off because they're gonna make me crazy. Okay, so anyways, but we need people to I give them nice chunky breaks and stuff to check in, and then when they come back, we have to do another little exercise to get them back out here. So I always tell people, please be present, right? And then this one I had to make up for my vice president at Disney, because he loved his own ideas, loved them. So we always talk about you can date ideas, but please don't marry them. Wine them, dine them, have an affair, but please, please, do not walk them down the aisle, right? Because ideas have to have the next iteration. They have to have the next evolvement, the next morph, right? So, people go, oh, so you can pet your own ideas. It's okay. Just don't marry them, okay? And then the last one is Vegas, because you always want to set a safe environment so that people can collaborate better. They feel like they can, build on each other's ideas. They feel like they can be open. So those are the agreements that I usually kind of start things with, right? But then we go right into some behaviors. And behaviors are really important because you've got the framework, the process that you take people through where you're divergent and convergent, okay, the whole time, right? You gotta think childlike, big, and then you gotta make some choices, right? But what happens is you can have the best framework, the best process, you can have the best tools, but if people aren't interacting well together, what's gonna happen? Nothing, right? So there's 9 creativity behaviors. If you guys look up, there's a book called Sticky Wisdom, and there's the creativity behaviors are listed in there. But I'm just gonna talk about a couple today. So the first one is all about greenhousing. And greenhousing is all about saying yes and. So in this group, anybody do improv? I'm sure, yeah. What's the first rule of improv? Yes and, right? Making your partner look good. Because have you guys ever been pitching an idea and people are like, no, we can't do that. What are some of the reasons that they give you? Won't work. Too much money, right? What else? Too much time. So all the resources, right? Also, we don't do it like that. Or we've tried that before, right? Sometimes they don't say anything at all. They're just like, okay? That's not greenhousing. That's saying no because, okay? The other thing you have to watch out for is when you're pitching an idea and people are like, oh, yeah, or we could just go do my idea, right? So that's hijacking, okay? That's not greenhousing because they're just waiting for you to take a breath. They're not listening to you. All they want to do is get their idea in there. So that's like saying yes or yes but. But yes and, if you build on each other's ideas, then whose idea is it in the end? Everybody's, right? So greenhousing is really important. And every good greenhouse has a sun. Sun is going to be our acronym of the morning, because God forbid we get through the day without an acronym. So the S stands for suspend judgment. So if somebody's pitching an idea to you and you're thinking in your head, wow, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, okay? Don't say anything. Just in your brain, press pause, right? Because the U in sun stands for understand. So maybe you just don't understand the idea they're pitching. So ask clarifying questions. Ask them some questions, right? And the N stands for nurture. Because you gotta, again, we're dating those ideas, so we have to pet them, okay? So put out both your hands. Pretend that there's a seed in both of your hands. Which one's gonna grow up to be the weed and which one's gonna grow up to be the flower? Do you have any idea? No. So you have to greenhouse, okay? The next one is freshness. Freshness is so important. So who drives the same way to work every day? Okay? Who orders the same stuff on your pizza? Okay? Who uses the same search engine on your computer? You guys, I go into Bing and type Google. I get it, okay? I get it. Okay, who sleeps on the same side of the bed every night? Even in a hotel? Yeah. Have you ever gotten to work and been like, oh my God, how did I get here today? Your brain is bored, okay? So you need some freshness, you need some new stimulus. So listen to some different music, watch a different movie, read a book that you wouldn't normally read. So when we traveled for Disney all the time, we were on a small team. The boys on my team, we'd buy magazines for each other that we had to read on the plane. So the boys on my team thought it was really funny, so they bought me Guns and Ammo and Log Cabin Monthly, and but we had to read them. And I'm sure the people on the plane were like, oh my God, who is this chick, right? But I was giggling inside because they were on a flight somewhere else reading Cosmo and Glamour, so I was totally fine with it. But we had to read it because, again, you just don't know where the spark of a new idea is going to come from, right? So really, freshness is so important when you're collaborating and when you're ideating. And then playfulness. Playfulness is my favorite because it adds that nice light touch, like you heard me say on the video, that opens up lots of possibilities. And we're taught at a very young age, right, that here's work and here's play, right? Because what's play called when we're in school? Recess, right? And they shouldn't come together. I beg to differ. Because where are you guys? What are you doing when you get your best ideas? Showering? Me too. I have markers in my shower, just FYI. Because I'm old, and by the time I towel off, I forget, so I write on my walls. What else? Working out, exercising. You'll never hear me say that. Okay, just say it. What else? Driving, yeah, and relaxing. Like sometimes people say right before I go to sleep, that kind of thing. But I noticed that no one said at work. So see, playfulness is important because you're relaxed enough that you can come up with new ideas. So we're going to play. I don't know how many of you know each other, but we're going to play. We're going to do a quick little energizer. So I want everybody up and get in groups of 3, preferably with people you don't know. Groups of 3. Okay, everybody got a group? Are you guys good? Everybody got a group? Okay, here we go. So this is a game called Experts, okay? So one at a time in your group, I'm gonna give each one of you a ridiculous expertise, okay? Your colleagues are gonna ask you questions, and you are just gonna make stuff up because you are the world-renowned expert in this field, okay? So in your groups right now, figure out who's A, who's B, who's C. Got it? Okay, who are my C's? Who are my C's? C's, you're going first. Okay. All right, so here we go. This is what you are. You are a coach that trains elephants how to parachute out of airplanes, okay? Your colleagues are gonna ask you questions, go. Okay, let's have everybody back. Come on back, come on back. All right, who are my A's? A's, you're next, and here's what you are. You are the best salesperson in the world for, wait for it, invisible wallpaper. Go. All right, who are my B's? Who are my B's? Let's see the wave of hands. Oh, my B's. I have saved the best for you. You are a sex therapist for unicorns. Go. But I like to debrief things. So how was that? Fun? If you guys start every meeting with like just a quick little improv exercise, look how it changes the energy in the room, first off, okay? And then secondly, it gets people thinking already, right? Because you don't care where that wallpaper's going or what the unicorn's doing or whatever, you're just making stuff up. So that's the best way to get people to collaborate, right? Is just by kind of loosening them up and allowing them to be a little bit naughty. I love to give people permission to be a little naughty. You get to some very different thinking. So, okay, a couple other things I want to cover. I could stand here all day and talk to you guys. But here's like 6 other ways to attack a challenge and get collaboration going in your groups. The first is like to borrow, or really, I call it stealing with glee, borrow ideas from other places. So think about where else in the world someone else is dealing with a challenge like yours. And don't go business to business, right? So if you work for a bank, don't go and say, oh, what's another bank doing? Go, okay, so we're trying to do advocacy. Where else in the world do they do advocacy, right? And then see if you can like steal or borrow some of the ideas and apply them back, okay? Really important to do. So one of the tools that I use at the Collaborative Design Center is called a human library. So I bring in people who are like kind of doing that. So for example, one of my first clients there was Bahama Breeze, right? And so they were like, okay, we want to put on some special events in our restaurants. So I was like, tell me how you want people to feel when they come into one of these signature events. Well, we want them to feel comforted, we want them to feel an escape, we want them to feel pampered. So, okay, so I brought in a human library, and I brought in somebody from the Ritz Spa. I brought in a hospice caretaker, right? And then we got some really cool essence ideas. They come in as naive experts, so they don't know what we're working on, but we just ask them questions. So how do you comfort someone? How do you get someone to feel an escape? And then you apply some of that stuff back. So just think about that the next time you guys have a challenge that you're working on. List the rules around what it is that you're working on, and then just say, well, what if these rules didn't exist? So great example of this. Who here uses Netflix? Okay. So the guy that started Netflix, his name is Reed Hastings, and years ago, he had 2 young sons, and they rented Apollo 13 from their local Blockbuster, right? Well, the kids lost the video in the couch cushions. So a couple weeks later, they find it. They take it back to Blockbuster. I think his fines were like $140. And he was like, okay, this is ridiculous. What if this didn't exist? So he created this list. What does exist with Blockbuster? Brick and mortar. You can only get a few different movies. You can only get them for 24 hours. Be Kind, Rewind, whatever, right? He listed this whole thing. And then he asked, well, what if this didn't exist? And he created Netflix. So see, ask that provocative what if and just see where else you can get to. Ask kids how they would solve things, right? Those AT&T commercials are so popular with the guy sitting around the table with the kids because no adult is ever going to tell you to strap a cheetah to your grandma's back. Okay? But kids will tell you that, and it may spark a new idea, right? Kids have the best ideas. And what's the question that kids ask all the time? Why? And then what do they ask? Why? Right? And they ask it 47 times, okay? Because eventually they get to a much better answer, okay? So just ask kids. A lady at Valencia called me when I first started there, and she was like, okay, I have this challenge. I don't know how to work on it. I'm like, do you have children? She's like, a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. I go, that's your dinner conversation tonight. She called me the next day. She's like, oh, my God, they solved it. I was like, absolutely. So don't discount kids, okay? Because remember, they're thinking childlike. They're thinking divergent, way up here. So they've got great ideas. Reword your challenge to make it kind of sexy, right? So we had a project at Disney, and it was important work, but it was called the Hispanic Target Initiative. Okay, right? Who wanted to work on that? So nobody wanted to join in. So we were like, huh. So I'm like, let's reword it. Let's change it. So somebody came up with Project Vamonos. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, wow, that's sexy. What's that? Okay? So then everybody wanted to be on it. So even just think about that. I mean, and you guys are all creative, so, it's not like talking to Homeland Security. But let me just say that, even letting people make up their own job titles is really fun. So we went to visit this group in Virginia at this company, and this lady greeted us at the door, and she was lovely. I mean, got us, coffee and tea, blah, 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 had this great conversation with us. We got up to our meeting, and we were like, oh my gosh, your receptionist is so nice. And the guy was like, oh, that's not our receptionist. That's our director of first impressions. Right? So just by letting her have her own title, it empowered her, right? So she wasn't going to screw up. So, I mean, just think about that rewording stuff. I call it a word dance, but it takes seriously 5 minutes to do. So it's really easy. What else do I have? Ask yourself what we would never do. What would you get fired for? Or what would you end up in jail for? Right? And let people be naughty, because they'll giggle, hee, 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 But then they have to twist it and save their jobs or get out of jail, right? And they'll get to some really different thinking. So I love to be that naughty girl and give people permission to be naughty, especially faculty people at Valencia, because they're just like pretty buttoned up, And then find a creative space to distract yourself. Even put 20 minutes on your calendar every day on that Outlook thing, right? So that you can just really think. Go for a walk. Walking meetings are becoming super popular. Just go for a walk. I know it's 1,000 degrees outside, but find some shade. You can do it. But just find ways to be creative and shake things up. So I was telling the ladies over here, I share an office with a faculty fellow, so they assigned this faculty member to me, and she's awesome. So thank God, because we spend a lot of time together. But like a couple days ago, she was just like, okay, we've been sitting here way long enough. So we turned up the Pandora, and we just got up and started dancing, right? And people were walking in going, what is going on up here? But you know what? I was going to say shake it off, but that would be way too Taylor Swift of me. So, but it does, it works, it gets your blood flowing again. So just think about that, okay? So those are just some tips for doing things. So anyways, I think my time is up, but I just wanted to say thank you guys for inviting me. This is awesome, and I appreciate it. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Yeah, sure. Anybody have any questions?
I know you talked about not shooting down people's ideas, but what about really bad ideas? And how do you handle that in a group?
Okay, so his question is, what if somebody has a really bad idea? I always say there's really no bad ideas because I'm that half-baked girl. I'll throw something. I know, there are some really bad ideas. But again, I press pause in my head and go, okay, I'm teaching this. But usually there's a nugget, there's something salvageable out of a really bad idea. Something. There's a nugget of something. So I just always try to look for that nugget, even if I have to kind of make it up a little bit, But you don't want to discourage anybody from being creative or from throwing stuff out there. So, sometimes I'll throw out like a half-baked idea in a group and it just fails miserably. Womp, womp, womp. So I just make fun of myself and move on. Because you just never know. But you don't want to squelch anybody's creativity because a lot of times people, not this group because you guys are creative people, but a lot of times I'll go into a group and be like, okay, who here thinks they're creative? You'll get like 2 hands in the room. Well, that's discouraging because you're like, people are told they're not creative, And maybe it's not in their title or maybe it's, whatever. Everyone's creative, I worked with a finance group at Disney and they were like, well, Gert, you're the creative one. I'm like, no. Everybody's creative. I was like, did you guys ever create a spreadsheet that saved the company money? Well, yeah. And I go, well, then you were creative. Creativity is not arts and crafts. It can be, but there's usually no glue guns involved. So, you can do whatever. But yeah, there's always going to be really bad ideas, but just kind of try to twist them a little bit or pet them and see if you can make them a little bit better. So, what else? Yeah. Yeah, so I've had an interesting path. So I don't know, I think you guys probably read my bio, but I got a degree in ad PR from UCF way back in the day, long before most of you were born. And then I went into retail marketing and then came back to the university. I went into credit union marketing, came back to the university, and worked in athletics as an assistant athletics director. It was fun. And then I worked for Mayor Dyer, and then Disney kind of said, we've got this position open, we want to recruit you. And I was like, I don't have that skill set. I facilitated, but I was really just making stuff up. I had no idea what I was doing. It was just enough to be dangerous. And they're like, but we like your personality and we're going to train you. And so they did. They invested, which was great. So, I would not have this job without them. You guys okay? Okay. All right. So anyways, it was just being in the right place at the right time. So I was telling these guys, I was on a flight from Boston yesterday, got home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and because our flight kept getting delayed, I just kept making new friends at the bar. It was awesome. But having, that's a really good point though, so I'm glad you brought that up, because having that unplanned collaboration is even more important than having planned collaboration. Just having conversations with people. I gave out a gazillion business cards yesterday because I was a holding court at the airport. It was great. So, but you never know. You never know when that spark of a new thing is going to happen. So I just keep getting recruited because I have those conversations. So the unplanned collaboration is super important because you could be sitting beside somebody right now who's got the solution to your challenge, but until you have that conversation, how do you know that, right? The other thing is, even at your workplaces, put people in circles. Then they have to make eye contact. They have to talk, right? There's tricks to the trade. So, yeah.
Would you recommend any resources to kind of get more understanding about creative collaboration?
Yeah, so he's asking about resources. Yes. So there's that book, Sticky Wisdom, that I talked about. There's also a book by my friend Tim Herson, who's brilliant, but it's called Think Better. So he's got a creative process that he calls ThinkX, and I use that quite a bit because it's different. It asks deeper, sexier questions to get some more response from the participants in your session. Yeah, I'll give you my card. If you guys want my card, I can send you a list of some other stuff because we've got a whole library of stuff that we've been using at Valencia. So yeah, absolutely. Who else? Yeah. My hardest client, but was by far Homeland Security. By far. They made me work for it. I got them there in the end. But they made me work for it because there they sat with all their badges and guns, right? And testosterone just oozing. And I was like, hi, blah, 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 you know, and I think I made them do experts, which they were not impressed with. But at the end, it was funny because at the end, the one guy goes, well, obviously you have no law enforcement background. I go, well, obviously I do. And he was like, well, you didn't say that. I go, well, you didn't ask. So I'm like, but when I worked for Mayor Dyer, I did all the press conferences for OPD. And I said, and I pushed them and made them do stuff differently because otherwise you've got all the chiefs standing there in their uniforms with flags behind and a podium and the mayor. Woo, okay? So it's like, how big is that soundbite gonna be? Not very big, right? So I would make them do things differently, and they hated me for it, but it was all good. Now we've got a big love fest. But they got bigger sound bites. So, you know, so that, Homeland Security definitely, because they didn't think my credentials served them. So, you know, so you have to watch, that's the other thing in groups, you just have to watch the egos. But know your audience, do your homework, because they'll call you on it, for sure. But like groups like you guys, like the Boston Children's Hospital yesterday, oh my God, they were just like so hungry for it. That's the other thing that I found traveling a lot all over the world, because I was kind of worried about going to France, you know, because I'm thinking, oh, the Parisians are going to think we're full of it, right? But everybody's hungry for creativity and innovation, everybody. So they were all enthusiastic and fabulous. So, and it's a way you approach it too, you know. So, what else? Yeah. Especially at Disney, because you know what we found out is we were like a relay team, okay? So strategy would say, here's the need, and they've got the baton. They pass it to my team. We'd do the creative session. We'd pass it to someone else. Consumer insights was never involved. So really, what are we doing? So then we started making multi-teams, multi-discipline teams, and then we had to work on everything together. Because Valencia does a lot of collaboration, like right now we're working on Creative Village. So in the room is UCF, Valencia, the city of Orlando, Disney's even in there sometimes, you know, so it's like my resume come to life. But it's awesome because the big thing you have to watch for, and at Disney too, because we'd have sponsors, you know, like Ocean Spray and those guys, everybody's got an agenda when they come into the room. So use some tools that help them find sweet spots, you know, and then everybody can work from the same space. So here's what we have in common, here's some themes, right? So now let's move forward. But yeah, it's just getting them to talk, honestly, you know, because everybody will come in with their own agenda. So let's figure out what that is, and then what are the sweet spots and work from there. So, good question though. One more question? Or not? Or not? Yes? So the thing is to create a parking lot, okay? So thank you, Mr. CEO of your company. I love that idea. Let's put it over here, okay? So we've got it. We're gonna hold on to it. Now let's see what else we can come up with, okay? So pay homage to it, you know, because they are your client, they're paying the check, right? Leave it over here though. And then, okay, well what else and what else, you know, and just keep asking that. So yeah, I had a client, a construction company a couple weeks ago. Oh, this CEO, he was great, but he loved the sound of his own voice a lot, and he had his own ideas. So we made a parking lot for him, and then I was like, dude, I'm gonna take this back over. I'm gonna take this back over, because otherwise he wasn't listening to his people, he was just talking, you know? So I'm like, you hired me for a reason, let them talk, put it back on them, you know? So, but that does happen, and that's a fine line, you know, when they're your client. So yeah, but if you just, you know, pay homage to it, let's leave it over here and we'll keep petting it, but let's see what else we can come up with. So good question though. So awesome, thanks you guys.